So before I introduce our next speaker, it's my distinct honor to present this year's Investing in Communities Award. This award recognizes someone who reflects the core values of MBA members and upholds our commitment to helping U.S. communities. Today's recipient is a longtime and generous supporter of Spare Key, an organization dedicated to helping families with critically ill or injured children by making mortgage payments on their behalf. I am proud to announce the recipient of this year's Investing in Communities Award. The person is Dan Arrigoni, President and CEO of U.S. Bank Home Mortgage. Dan's unwavering support. Dan, come on up. Dan's unwavering support has enabled Spare Key to help hundreds of Minnesota families in their time of need so they can spend time with their children. Since becoming involved, with Spare Key, Dan reaches out to his network and secures consistent funding with sponsorships for Spare Key fundraising events. My wife Mary and I have contributed to Spare Key for many years. We think it's an extremely important cause. Most notable among the relationships Dan has forged for Spare Key is the commitment from U.S. Bank Home Mortgage to provide in-kind mortgage relief for approved Spare Key families. Dan and his wife Jo actively continue to personally advocate for Spare Key and its mission. So ladies and gentlemen, let's congratulate and welcome Dan. And Dan, we know Nicole's here. Nicole, if you could join us. And we do have a surprise from backstage. Jo, if you could please come out. Dan's wife, Jo, is here as well. Oh, I probably violated the process here. Here we go. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And Dan, before I ask you to make a few comments, the one thing I'd like you to know is when Rick Hartnick at U.S. Bank, your boss, heard that we were giving this award to you, U.S. Bank has also stepped up and they're making a donation to Spare Key on your behalf as a result of this award today. So please make a couple of comments. Thanks, Dan. That's the check.
Great.
Let's get a picture real quick. Here. Come on, Nicole. There we go. Thanks, Dan.
I knew nothing of this, and I'm very humbled. You know, I kissed my wife goodbye yesterday and said I'll see you on Wednesday. And my beautiful daughter happens to be part of our great industry, as Dave mentioned, about bringing your family and friends into it. You know, let me tell you a story. And I told this story yesterday. Dave asked me to tell it at a meeting. But I've been very blessed. 2011 marks my 40th year in this industry. And it's a great industry. I've been very blessed. And I said to Joe, it's time that we give back. We give back. And I got 3 beautiful grandchildren. And I have to tell you a story about Spare Key, and I'm so proud that our national MBA is taking it on. And in our audience happens to be our executive director of Minnesota, Ann Bomstead Miller, and I'm proud that she's here to hear this. But in 2003, I got a call from one of our collectors saying that there is a single mother that has a critically ill child. And I just called them because they haven't made their payment, and they told us that, or she told us that her child is critically ill and in the hospital, and she had to leave her job, spend a few days with this child. I'm going to try and get through this. So anyhow, her payment was $803, and all my collectors know that if there's any issues like that, on a mortgage made in Minnesota to call Spare Key or turn them on to Spare Key. And Spare Key works through the hospitals and the social workers that help these families. So she did, and Spare Key got the request and made the house payment. June came, and I get a call from the collector and said, Dan, remember I called you last month and you told me to tell them about Spare Key, which we did, and they made the payment, but she hasn't made her June payment. And I talked to her, and her little girl died May 23rd. And after going through what she went through, she's not back to work yet. What can we do? Because Spare Key has so many requests for this type of thing that she asked if, Spare Key just limits their payment to one. Because again, we have many requests and we can't pay it forever. And I said, that's tragic. And don't say anything, but allow me to make the payment. Fast forward, that was June of '03, $803. I might add, she volunteered, the single mother volunteered that she's from, her family are farmers in Fairmont, Minnesota. And it wasn't a good year for crops, and she went to her mother and father, and they just didn't have the money to help her. And for those of you that know that about farming, that happens. So I can't only imagine how they felt with their granddaughter passing and their daughter asking for help, and they couldn't do it. So we fast forward, I get a call in my office, like July or August of '09, and the call was from our Spare Key office and asked if I could come as a board member. There's somebody that wanted to talk to me. So I went there. And I walked in, and there was this older couple, and they said, Mr. Arrigoni, I don't know if you remember me or not, or remember this situation. You wouldn't remember us. We've never met you, but 5 years ago, our daughter couldn't make her house payment, and our granddaughter was critically ill and passed away on May 23rd, '03. I said, I happen to remember that. We do a lot of this, but we do have a policy of one payment, and I remember. You remember something like that. And they said, well, we're here to talk to you because on May 23rd of '09, we were lucky enough to win the lottery, $50 million. And we're here to give you a check for $50,000 to help other families. I got to tell you, I played hockey and everything, and I always felt I was a tough guy, but this is tough on me right now. But anyhow, at any rate, that's what it's called. Pay it forward. Give back. I know I have an audience out here of tremendous professionals, individuals that probably do as much, if not more. So I'm very honored. I had no idea this was going to happen. I'm very surprised and proud, but if all of you would embrace this, I've volunteered my time to continue to help give back, and I told Dave that I'll try to help wherever I could on their nonprofit board and lead a charge. So didn't mean to take this much time. I don't think Dave meant for me to take this much time. But thank you very much. I'm very honored. Thank you,
As you can see, to Dan's commitment, the first time Mary and I heard about it, we immediately wrote a check to Spare Key, and I think this will be great for us, for our industry, to do something good for families in need that relates to housing. And we'll reach out to all of you with more information.